What draws fans into the online shooter RPG genre is its hybrid of the classic shooter and RPG genres while cracking open a cold one with the boys. Players get to shoot stuff while having a goal to strive for and feel progressively more powerful in the process, and doing so alongside that guy with 4 X's, 5 numbers, and a couple hyphens in their name. This hybrid experience isn't for everyone and is typically shadowed by larger classic genres like the previously mentioned shooter and RPG, as well as relatively newer genres like MOBA and Battle Royale. It's hard to tell if the lack of quality game variety within the genre is a result of a smaller fan base than bigger genres, or if it's in fact the cause. The fan base of this genre has shown signs of significant growth in the past and has roots from successful franchises like Fallout and Mass Effect. Shooter RPGs were primarily found in the offline single-player realm for years until Gearbox's Borderlands hit the scene. Borderlands brought a fun, arcadey feel to the genre while introducing an incredible amount of weapon variety and activities to the table. This new franchise burst onto the gaming world and followed up beautifully to keep the momentum going with the sequel, Borderlands 2. Borderlands and Borderlands 2 really brought the online aspect to the genre's table, with online friends being able to fluently join and leave games and activities. With over 12 million copies of Borderlands 2 alone and over 26 million copies of the game from the entire franchise sold, you can't really say that there isn't an interest in this genre. The three warriors in the online shooter RPG genre's ring for the past few years have been Warframe, Destiny, and The Division. We're still waiting for the mythical Borderlands' return and are uncertain if the up-and-coming Anthem will amount to anything. There are other games that have the nicknamed looter shooter aspects, but they're either all mixed with other genres like Castle Defense or roguelike, or they're no longer relevant for the current mainstream gamer who only wants to play the big titles everyone else is playing. Providing a brief synopsis of each game's impact on the genre will give a solid perspective of why the genre ended up where it is after its initial momentum. First, we'll talk about Destiny, the big hitter. Destiny, developed by Bungie, the creators of the wildly popular Halo franchise, brought an even more diverse online experience with strikes, which are similar to dungeons of traditional MMOs like World of Warcraft, as well as raids and open world questing. This game was a beast at launch, with being the 5th most expensive video game to ever be developed and introduced the most MMO feel of any major online shooter RPG title. Destiny was a resounding initial success as the player base grew from 7 to 8 figures within a year, but the hype began dying down as the game experienced many content droughts. The player base had spikes during times of DLC releases and large updates to the game. However, players overall began slowly leaving the game. By the end of its 3-year run, player count dwindled down to 6, sometimes barely 7 figures. Then, Destiny 2 came. Destiny fans largely wrote off the shortcomings of Destiny as the developers were primarily working on the sequel to the game they fell in love with. The idea in the minds of many was that Destiny 2 would bring the fans away from the progressively more stale Destiny and into the Holy Land that would be the equivalent or greater to the experience of the first half of Destiny's run. Promises from Bungie included more frequent updates, better balancing, and an overall better gaming experience. What players received was shiny imagery and gameplay that was so balanced that it felt immobilized. Not only that, but updates were as infrequent as the first installment of the franchise. This caused a lot of backlash from the community as they held out for so long for promises of a better future, only to be given more of the same, or even worse. There was a detectable improvement from the release of the first DLC, Curse of Osiris, but it simply wasn't enough to keep the fanbase happy. Bungie has recently released a development update announcing a lot of changes to their game to improve the experience and bring the franchise back to where the fans wanted. Many of the proposed changes are simply reverting a lot of the game state to that of the first Destiny. This has caused a lot of despondency among the fan base as it takes half a year to experience what they've already had before. I could go into further detail about this subtopic, but it would be best provided in another video, and at this point it's kinda like beating a dead horse. Surprising to many, Warframe was actually released before Destiny. Many didn't know of its existence until later on due to its creators, Digital Extremes, not being the financial powerhouses of Bungie and Activision. Additionally, many people from its community regard the first couple of years of this game's existence as a learning experience. As the game progressively improved, word began spreading and interest in the game grew. The player base has proven to be relatively small next to the Goliath that is the Destiny franchise, but it is one that has instilled confidence in its fans. The third of the current top dogs mentioned earlier in this video is The Division. The Division, developed by Massive Entertainment, was hyped by many as the Destiny killer. At the time of launch, Destiny was beginning its slow descent, and with the publishing of Ubisoft, The Division had fantastic positioning to potentially do what many were claiming: kill Destiny. However, consumers realized when they began playing that the game was plagued with game-breaking bugs and glitches, many of which were quickly addressed by the developers, only to reveal even more. Beyond this tragedy was something just as poisonous to the game's image. There was a significant lack of gameplay variety in both replayable activities and goals to strive for. Within a dozen hours worth of gameplay or less, you would find yourself doing the exact same activity as everyone else, all while trying to obtain the exact same 3 weapons and 6 gear pieces, which is just one of each slot. Not only that, but the time investment was tremendous in comparison to the little improvement of power received. Nearly 2 years after release, the game has finally gotten to a relieving landscape of both activity and item variety, with only a few bugs and glitches found. And of those few, all appear insignificant compared to the plague of the past. Much like Destiny's follies, discussing the uprising of the Division is also a topic I'd like to further explore, but will be saved for another video. With completing the history lesson, leading us to the present time, I would like to go back to the question implied earlier. Is the fanbase size of this genre the cause or symptom of the lack of quality game variety? It should be noted that the genre is relatively new to the gaming world with roughly a decade of existence. Naturally, it takes time to build up a large fanbase, right? Well, it's been a decade. And considering MOBAs have been around for roughly the same amount of time and Battle Royales have about half the current lifespan, it's hard to use that as the argument. Considering the genre was gaining an incredible amount of momentum from Borderlands leading to the halfway point of Destiny, to have such a major fall off in player base across the genre's game selection shows that it's a fault of the games to choose from. The 2 major titles following Borderlands 2, Destiny and The Division, had either a poor end or beginning in the eyes of their communities. Gearbox did release the pre-sequel following Borderlands 2, but it was immediately after Destiny's powerhouse release, which caused an eclipse to form over Gearbox's 3rd installment to the franchise. Despite the marketing eclipse and the somewhat shortcomings of the 3rd installment, fans of this genre are still looking at Gearbox to provide a masterpiece with the announced and currently mysterious Borderlands 3. While the overall genre has hit a slump, there is still hope for the future for many reasons. First, Borderlands 3 is on the horizon. Second, there have already been massive improvements from The Division and Warframe, causing both of their communities and credibility to grow. Third, Bungie provided more promises with positive updates coming within the first 2 quarters of 2018. And fourth, a new promising IP in Anthem is coming later this year. Many fans of this genre have grown tired of waiting for the wonderful experience felt from Borderlands through to the golden era of Destiny. Because of this exhausted wait over the last 2 years, there will need to be major changes to bring them back from the alluring qualities of other games. It could be said that all of the implemented and proposed changes across Destiny, Warframe, and The Division are too late. Borderlands 3 is too far away, and Anthem will likely turn into just another cash machine with EA's publishing. Many will hold on to this perspective and likely won't return despite improvements. Faith in the genre has simply crumbled from the failures of the poster boys of recent. But a significant amount of players will return upon a reality of improvements in delivery of quality games. This has already been seen within Warframe and The Division. Not everything in life is a steady upward climb, and this genre certainly knows that to be true. The desire and interest of millions has been proven. The market is out there. All the genre needs is for the games to deliver. As someone who has fallen in love with the genre, I hope they do. As always, thank you so much for being you, and thanks for watching.